About to start with a session on multicolor imaging beyond retina. So I would be introducing you all to the moderator of our session, Dr. Kumar Saurabh. So I request Dr. Kumar Saurabh to take it over from here and introduce our speakers.
Thank you very much. So welcome everybody to the session on multicolor imaging. Thank you AIOS for giving us this opportunity to present our work. So good morning again. So we have a session which is called multicolor imaging beyond retina. Why we are calling it imaging beyond retina? Because we are discussing not just retinal imaging but allied imaging also, which involve other posterior segment structures. So the eminent speakers are, apart from me, are Dr. Ish Nigam, who will be talking about the outer retinal pathologies. Dr. Tanmay Biswas, he is a neuro-ophthalmology specialist who will be talking about the use of multicolor imaging in neuro-ophthalmology diagnosis. And two glaucoma specialists which we have in our program today are Dr. Surajit Sen and Dr. Tamanas Basu, who will be discussing about the nuances of glaucoma diagnostic modality using multicolor imaging. So welcome again. So I'll be talking about viewing the retina in a different light, the inner retina. We do not have any financial disclosures to make. So first, to begin with, what is multicolor imaging? So it is just another way of fundus photography. It is different from color fundus photography. So it's just a new way of fundus photography, and it's not a different it's not a different scanning or anything like that, or not an angiography or not an optical coherence tomography. It's just a fundus photography. But how is it different? It is different because it uses white light. It doesn't use white light, which is used in conventional color fundus photograph. Instead, it uses laser lights, which are blue, green, and infrared lasers. In color fundus photography, we use flash camera and the images are acquired. Wherever in multicolor imaging or any pseudocolor imaging, we use the confocal scanning laser ophthalmoscope to image different layers of the retina. And what sort of disadvantage which we have in multicolor imaging is that it doesn't give us a real color of the fundus. Rather, it gives a color coded image, which which can be said as a disadvantage, but we will come to know after the end of this session that it is the actually advantage that we get different color codings. So what advantage others we have in multicolor is that in normal color fundus photography, we do not have any topographic information. We just get a 2D, two-dimensional fundus photo. However, in multicolor imaging, by the virtue of using three different lights, we get a topographical information, which layer is thicker or thinner, and it also gives us elevation or information about the retinal elevation or depression. So how does a multicolor image look like? Basically, as I said earlier, we use three laser channels: blue, green, and infrared channels. So we get three images. The individual images are called reflectance image. The image which is obtained by blue laser is called blue reflectance, which is obtained by green and infrared are called green reflectance. So for the sake of understanding, I have marked those images with square of that particular color. And if we combine these reflectance or laser channel images, then what we get is a multicolor image. So there are four things: the three reflectance images, and one combination of all these is composite or multicolor image. So how do we interpret it? Blue reflectance is basically the shortest wavelength, and it is used for the things which are on the surface, the vitreoretinal interface and inner retina. Green reflectance has longer wavelength, and it is meant to image inner and mid layers of the retina. And infrared reflectance, being the longest wavelength of laser, it images the outer retina and choroid. So this is how we use these laser channels. And as we have hyperfluorescence and hypofluorescence in fluorescein angiography, similarly we have here two things: greenish hue and orange red hue. Greenish hue means anything which is elevated or thick it appears as greenish. Anything which is depressed or thin does appear as orange red in color. So with this background, we will see how multicolor image helps us in diagnosing inner retinal pathologies. So to begin with, this is a picture of color fundus and multicolor image of a patient of asteroid halosis. So in the color fundus picture we can see clearly that the asteroid halosis is casting a shadow, casting an obstruction in the view, and we hardly can get any information on the color fundus photography. Whereas multicolor image, it doesn't use bright flashlight, so it doesn't get reflected back from the asteroid crystals, and we can very well get a clear fundus picture even in a dense asteroid hyalosis eye. So this is a very important important use of multicolor imaging in patients who have asteroid hyalosis. We are hardly getting anything to see, and we can very well see everything because of the virtue of using laser light, that it doesn't get reflected and it gives us a clear picture of the fundus. Similarly, another patient having asteroid hyalosis, dense asteroid hyalosis, nothing is visible. Again, multicolor image gives us a clear picture of the fundus. We can see that where are the hemorrhages and hard exudates in this patient of diabetic retinopathy. So whenever we have asteroid hyalosis, we can obtain a multicolor image, and it will give us a clear picture. Going little deeper on the superficial retinal structures or inner retinal structures, here we see a right eye of a patient who has some laser scars, and we can hardly see some old hard exudates, and that's it. But OCT shows that there is an ERM there, and this ERM is barely seen on the color fundus photography, and we have to rely on the OCT. Again, if we do a multicolor image, then we can see a greenish sheen on the surface of the retina, and that demarcates the areas of uh, epiretinal membrane. So since greenish hue is superficial, epiretinal membrane is superficial, so any abnormality on the surface will appear as greenish hue. And since the laser channel which is responsible for imaging the superficial structures are superficial thing is blue, so epiretinal membrane is clearly seen on the blue reflectance image, which is marked by the blue square on the outside. And if you see the green and infrared reflectance, it is still little bit seen on the green reflectance, but it is not seen on the infrared reflectance. So we need to know on which reflectance channel we should see which structure. Epiretinal membrane being superficial, so it is more obviously seen on the blue reflectance image alongside the composite multicolor image. Similarly, this patient of macular edema because of diabetic retinopathy, if you see the fundus photograph, we can see hemorrhages, hard exudates, and retinal hemorrhages. But macular edema is not that obviously seen, which macular edema can be obtained or can be imaged with the help of OCT. However, as we know that diabetic retinopathy is becoming more screening based on the color fundus photographs. So color fundus photograph doesn't give information about the macular edema that much here. If we see the multicolor image of this eye, we see that the macular edema is very nicely depicted by the greenish hue in the center of the macula. And it is just a matter of thought that if we could use multicolor imaging rather than color fundus photography for mass diabetic screening, then probably we'll be able to pick up lot more macular edema patients even without doing OCT. That can be a mass utility of multicolor imaging here. Similarly, this patient has macular edema and cystoid macular edema also, which is seen on the OCT. Again, color fundus picture doesn't give that much of information. However, we can clearly see the petaloid appearance of the cystoid spaces or the fovea, which is seen as the reddish orange petaloid structure at the center of the fovea. And rest of the macula is greenish because of the thickness, and the cysts are seen as in orange red color. So both normal thickness macular edema and cystoid macular edema appear very distinctly on the multicolor image. So this was the utility of multicolor in diabetic retinopathy. Going to another structures of involving the inner retina and retinal thickness. This is a patient of optic disc pit maculopathy. We can see here that OCT is nicely showing retinoschisis and subretinal fluid at the center of the macula. And color fundus photo does show some thickness, but it doesn't give us any idea that what could be the cause of this thickness at the fovea. So if we do a multicolor image here, we can see that the obviously fovea is thickened, which was seen on the multicolor fundus photo also, but the thickness is extending from the fovea and going towards the arcades and on the papulomacular bundle and pointing towards the disc. So it gives us further clue that probably this thickness is because of the optic disc maculopathy. And if one could see the optic disc a little minutely, we will be able to see that the color fundus photo doesn't give us any clue about the possibility of an optic disc pit here, whereas the multicolor image shows that the central cup of the disc is showing a blackish discoloration in the inferotemporal margin of the neuroretinal rim. So that is the site of the pit. So optic disc pit maculopathy, when many times the pit is occult and multicolor image can help us in identifying these occult optic defects also. Probably the last slide which I'm sharing is regarding the inner retinal images is a paracentral acute middle maculopathy. This is a ischemic change in the inner nuclear layer, and we can see in the color fundus photo a patch of yellowish, whitish yellow color near the fovea, in the nasal part of the fovea, whereas multicolor image rather delimits or delineates this paracentral acute middle maculopathy nicely by giving it a greenish hue. This greenish hue again is because that area is thickened. So anything which is thickened gives us a greenish hue. If we do an OCT and infrared reflectance image, then we can see the further classical pictures. Here the infrared reflectance is dark. Why it is dark? Because the PAM lesion is present in the inner retinal layers, inner nuclear layer, and it is a thickening, and it is casting a shadow. So that's why the reflectance from the infrared channel has been masked by the thickening of the inner nuclear layer and hyperreflectivity of the inner nuclear layer, and that's why reflectivity is blocked. So this blocked reflectivity from the inner infrared channel is a characteristic, and we say that PAM is characterized by hyporeflectivity on the infrared image. That's how it looks like. And obviously OCT shows the thickening of the inner nuclear layer and this. So these are the pathologies of the inner nuclear layer where we found that multicolor image gives additional information which is not easily discernible on the color fundus photography. And many times, even without doing an OCT, we can get a clue that what we are going to find on OCT. And to that, as I said earlier, probably if the system, if the imaging technique can be incorporated in diabetic retinopathy screening, then probably many macular edema patients' eyes will be easily picked up and rather not even require a referral or consultation at the clinic. Thank you very much. So this was about the inner retinal pathologies, which we deal with the multicolor imaging. So we have another set of talks by our guest speakers. And the next talk will be by Dr. Ish Nigam, who is a senior retina specialist at Shankar Nethralaya, Kolkata. He will be talking about how multicolor imaging helps us in identify lesions which are in the outer retina and deeper. Dr. Ish Nigam, welcome to the session. Dr. Ish, please unmute yourself.
Yeah, good morning.
Yeah.
I am audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
Yeah.
Please share your slide.
I'll start sharing my screen first. Yeah, so my slides are visible?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. So good morning, everybody. I will be talking about the outer retinal layer in multicolor imaging. So to start with, just a few summarize the advantages. More advantages are towards the multicolor image side. But the notable thing is that the color fundus image findings are more comparable to clinical findings. And the other point to note is the artifact, which we'll be talking about this host maculopathy later on in the talk. So this was the case of macular telangiectasia, which having abnormal pigmentary accumulation in the macular area. So see the noted difference of color changes in the color of pigment accumulation. The composite multicolor image of the right eye showed orangish reddish coloration of the pigment, and corresponding blue reflectance shows well demarcated pigment accumulation. The OCT shows the inner retinal hyperreflectivity characteristics of the macular telangiectasia. The other eye also having the features of macular telangiectasia, the perifoveal retinal halo due to subretinal fibrosis, and the pigment discoloration as seen in the composite multicolor image. Some of the features of the CSR which was very well demarcated in multicolor imaging was the SRF demarcation. As we see in the composite multicolor image, the demarcation of the SRF and the bleb raised retinal gives a greenish tinge of the in composite multicolor image. The corresponding blue reflectance channel also gives well demarcated SRF bleb as compared to the color fundus picture, while the infrared reflectance shows additional RP atrophy in pheronasal part of the fluid accumulation, which was barely visible in the color fundus picture. The other eye also having the similar features like fibrin deposit in the superiotemporal part of the macula, which was not very well demarcated in composite multicolor image. But what was seen is the PED adjacent to the fibrin. The PED has the characteristic peri-lesional hyper orangish demarcation with corresponding infrared reflectance channel shows hyperreflectivity surrounding the hyporeflective. So the characteristic features which were discussed in CSR in this study shows that the fibrin was well appreciable in color fundus picture, while the other features were more appreciable in multicolor imaging. The similar kind of study in the other part of the world comparing the early and late features of ARMD, which hemorrhage and pigmentary accumulation was more appreciable in color fundus picture. So other features were more appreciable while in multicolor imaging. So this is a color fundus picture of reticular pseudodrusense, which are the accumulation subretinally. So that's why this composite multicolor image gives a greenish hue over those areas. Now, this is all the case of idiopathic CNVM, which is seen characteristically in color fundus picture here. Sorry, here. Now, the FFA and OCT are diagnostic features confirm the idiopathic CNVM. The composite multicolor images shows orangish surrounding ring over the lesion, which is because of the RP hypertrophy, and enriched this orangish lesion, orangish ring color was attributed to the melanin content of that area, while the greenish tinge over the central part is due to the neovascular network, which is also corresponding in the infrared reflectance channel. Now, about injured streaks, these are the crack-like structures in the calcified Brooks membrane overlying the atrophied RPE, which is more characteristically and better appreciated in multicolor imaging. And the channel for visualization in all above the multicolor is the infrared reflectance, as the infrared light pass through all the inner and middle layers of the retina and reflected back from the RPE. Now, PCV lesions are usually colored in color fundus picture or orangish nubule, typically, as we all know. But in composite multicolor image, it is having a greenish hue over that area because of the raised retina. In this multicolor image of the 55-degree area, there is a whitish halo seen over the multicolor image. This is the artifact actually while capturing, which is most commonly encountered in multicolor imaging, and is called as ghost maculopathy. So one has to be aware of while reading the multicolor image. Now, the corresponding areas of leakage, as when we compare to the multicolor imaging, the multicolor imaging shows that damaged area much more wide area of the abnormal retina as compared to the area of leak. So that can suggest that structural damage can extend beyond the area of leak, but needs more evaluation and studies. Now, here is the comparison of the image. In this color fundus picture, there is a subretinal heme accumulation, while there is in multicolor imaging, we can see the greenish hue because of the raised retinal elevation and the dark red color of the subretinal heme, while there is a border of the PED also can be appreciable with orangish reddish ring surrounding that fibroscopy PED. Now, coming to the green reflectance of the multicolor imaging shows the corresponding PED with hyperreflectivity. This was the case of actually a CNVM in which the subretinal heme is appreciable as a dark red area. In angiography, which is the gold standard, we can see hypercyanosins in the ICG, which can mimic an PCV lesion, but it was not a typical leak of what we see in polyps. So polyp was ruled out carefully by one has to keep this integrity in their mind. So in best disease, the right eye having the vitelliform erective state, while the left eye is having a pseudo-hypopyon state, while composite multicolor image shows an additional artery atrophy temporal to the macular area and the hyperreflectivity due to the accumulation of the lipid fusion in the left eye. While the green reflectance shows increased, most highly reflective area of the accumulation of the lipofuscin interiorly, while the infrared reflectance shows additional RPE defects over the macular area. The choroidemia is X-linked degenerative disorder of the retina and choroid, which starts from the peripheral lesion, while the multicolor image, the lesions are more clearly better appreciated and delineated of the central preserved retina, which can be more of a prognostic value and follow-up of the disease. Here also the infrared reflectance channel shows the well-demarcated area of the preserved retina over the macular area in both the eyes, right and left. The choroidal osteomas are the ossifying tumors of the choroid. The color from this picture of the right eye shows a well-demarcated yellowish lesion over the macular area, while the corresponding composite multicolor images show the greenish hue over that area. Now these tumors are appears in various stages of calcification, decalcification, and associated complications like RPE atrophy, which can be of a bad visual prognosis. Now in composite multicolor image, the greenish hue signifies that the tumor is in ossification or the calcification state. Like in this case, the infrared reflectance shows a hyporeflectivity because of the trabecular spongy bony meshwork present in the tumor area, which are highly vascular channels, and sometimes and always they are connected with the high vascular flow of the choroidal blood vessels, which mask the infrared laser light so that it appears as a hyporeflectance. While the green and the blue reflectance doesn't show any obvious nux changes. This is another case of choroidal osteoma in which the tumor area was seen temporal to the macula. This is in the decalcification stage. Now here you can see the multicolor image doesn't show any color changes over that area, but the infrared channel shows a relatively moderately hyperreflectance over that area, which signifies the absence of trabecular vascular and the vascular channel, which was masking the infrared laser light from the outer retinal layers. This case of the choroidal osteoma was associated with RPE atrophy, which signifies poor prognosis. So the composite multicolor images show the orangish ring of devoid of RPE layers, and there was an increased reflectance in the infrared channel also. So this signifies that the choroidal osteoma can be categorized well with this multicolor imaging and of a great prognostic value. This ends my presentation. The multicolor imaging shows a vast opportunities and the areas are yet to be explored. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ish. Nice presentation. So, we have a question for you? What is the significance of choroidal knuckle when you find it, and what does it signify? There was a question for you.
Actually, it closely one has to keep differentiating from while diagnosing polyp, because it doesn't need any treatment as such. But in case of polyp, you need to have a very close monitoring and treatment for that. So one has to keep a differential for the polyps. That's what it actually signifies.
So means how do you differentiate between whether it's a polyp
So
or
already the gold standard for the diagnosis of IPCV is ICG. And when we see hypercyanosis area, we have to see the late leakage as well to diagnose the polyp. This, in cases of knuckle, we have got the hypercyanosis because of the stagnation of the blood, not because of the leakage. So this has to keep in mind, and one has to differentiate between both the things.
So knuckle is not going to leak. That's what you want to convey. Right?
That's what, yeah.
And next question is that in your clinical practice as a retina practitioner, which are the conditions where you find that multicolor imaging is of utmost value, means most valuable? Like, this was one question.
So what I feel is that it is a better document for the cases in areas where we have to follow up the patients for long term, like choroidal nevus and other things also. Diagnosis are aided by already the angiogram and other things, but for documentation and for explaining and for monitoring prognostic wise also, it is a non-invasive, the best tool available when we compare with the color fundus picture.
Okay, thank you, Dr.
The area is yet to be explored actually.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thank you, Dr. Ish. So our next speaker, now we move on to the realm of glaucoma. So we have two eminent glaucoma practitioners from Shankar Nethralaya, Kolkata. So first speaker will be Dr. Surajit Sen, who will be telling us how to differentiate normal from abnormal or vice versa. So welcome, Dr. Surajit.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Kumar Saurabh, for this kind invitation and having me in this platform today. My slides are visible now?
Not now, sir.
Not yet.
Yes.
Yeah,
Now
yeah.
it's visible, sir.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So I'll be discussing this topic, normal optic disc versus abnormal optic disc in multicolor imaging. Oh, it's not moving.
You can use the arrows.
Just give me 1 minute. No, yeah, I'm trying to do that only, but it's not moving. Got stuck somehow. Just give me 1 minute, please.
Yeah. Can go to the slideshow mode. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry for the delay. And I don't have any financial interest in this presentation. This is the overview of my presentation. First, I will just discuss briefly about the importance of documentation of optic disc features and various modalities to do that. Then I'll discuss about the optic disc evaluation by color disc photograph, and I will compare this with multicolor imaging. And at last, I will discuss about the advantages of multicolor imaging. So first, coming to the documentation part. As we know, glaucoma by definition is a multifactorial chronic progressive optic neuropathy described by the morphological changes in the intrapapillary and peripapillary region of the optic nerve head and the retinal nerve fiber layer with characteristic visual field defects leading to the loss of visual function. So it is appropriate techniques of clinical evaluation can help differentiate between the glaucomatous, non-glaucomatous, and the normal disc. It is important to document the glaucomatous damage properly, both structural and functional, to understand the disease progression more accurately. Here we can see the inferior rim excavation with corresponding area of functional loss in this automated perimetry. But the proper documentation is always important. The observations can be documented in the form of photographs or disc diagrams and should be repeated at appropriate interval. Since the 20th century, the optic disc photography has been considered the gold standard for the optic disc documentation. In modern era, computer-assisted imaging, most commonly use the Heidelberg retinal tomogram, optical coherence tomography. These machines are more commonly used now because these are the features to both qualitatively and quantitatively document the disc features. First, coming to the HRT part, the HRT can produce a high definition 3D image of optic nerve head. It uses the confocal scanning laser ophthalmoscope based on the confocal scanning laser ophthalmoscope principle. Previously, it was more were concentrating on the optic disc features only in previous HRT1 and HRT2. In the recent machine of HRT3, they have included the RNFL analysis also. And another machine is our optical coherence tomography. That OCT can be used for both disc evaluation, RNFL evaluation, along with that ganglion cell complex analysis also, which are more helpful in the combined way to document and follow up the glaucoma patients. This Spectralis SDOCT machine, it has the unique features of this combined OCT and confocal scanning laser ophthalmoscope in same machine, which can be used to document the disc images along with the RNFL and GCC analysis. Coming to the optic disc evaluation part with the color disc photograph, these are the features usually we document while we evaluate a color disc photograph. First, coming to this scleral ring part. The scalar ring is a boundary of the optic disc. It helps to determine the size and shape of the disc. And it may be visible in all eyes, but more clearly visible in the myopic eyes. Next is the cup, which is a central depressed part, but it is, we see it stereoscopically. In 2D images, mostly it is delineated by the bending of the vessels and also the change in the colors. But change in the color part is actually not very sensitive tool to diagnose the to document the cup. For the cup part, it is important to document the cup to disc ratio. This cup to disc ratio documentation is helpful for follow-up as progressive increase in CDR, a sensitive indicator for glaucoma progression. And we should also keep this in mind that a larger disc will have a larger cup and the smaller disc may have a smaller cup. So both of this may be normal, may not be a pathological finding. The next important part is our neuroretinal rim. The neuroretinal rim, this is the most important part for the glaucoma point of view. Any irregularities like any excavation, any thinning, any loss of neuroretinal rim should definitely, we should document it properly. And normally inferior rim is the thickest rim, nasal and temporal, with few exceptions, which may be normal also. The next part is our peripapillary atrophy, this area. In color disc photograph, the peripapillary atrophic area can be divided. Most commonly seen, it is alpha zone and beta zone. The alpha zone is the outer area. That area is usually hyperpigmented. It is because of the irregularity of the retinal pigment epithelium. And which is more diagnostic for the glaucoma part is that is the beta zone, which is adjacent to the optic disc. And that area actually over time, if you serial disc photographs we follow, that area we see that if disease progression, there is a possibility that beta zone may widen. So that can also be an important tool to assess. Next part is our retinal nerve fiber layer defect. The retinal nerve fiber layers are formed by the axons of the ganglion cells, and any because of the death of the ganglion cell, there may be defects in that nerve fiber layer, and it is more commonly seen in red-free images, definitely. And it grossly, it can be a slit defect, can be a little bit wider wedge defect, or maybe diffuse RNFL loss. And coming to the last part, that is the presence of any disc hemorrhage. Disc hemorrhage, maybe it is also called the splinter hemorrhage or Drans hemorrhage. It may be at the disc margin, or it can be seen in the intrapapillary or within 1 disc diameter area of the RNFL. Coming to the comparison part with multicolor imaging. First of all, let's see, this is a normal disc, as we can see from this color finder photograph also, and this is the OCT of this same patient. And this is a disc photo of the right eye. And here we can assess that you can see the around 0.6 to 0.7 cup disc ratio. With that, peripapilar atrophy is there, almost 360-degree. Neuroatrial limb, overall it looks quite healthy. No area of any thinning or any excavation is visible. RNFL area is not very well visualized here. But if you see in multicolor images, the neuroatrial rim appears darker in multicolor image. The better delineation of the peripapilar atrophy is very well appreciated here. And definitely the nice striations of the RNFL. So these areas, we can definitely visualize this is a sign of healthy RNFL. And this definitely from this neuroatrial rim area also, we can see there is no other excavation or any thinning or any loss. Nothing is appreciated here. And another example, this one, it is a large physiological cup. If we assess this area, sometimes it is difficult to assess the exactly size of the cup here because of some color change, some sloping rim here. Sometimes it is difficult here. And also some peripapilar atrophy is there. And if we minutely see, some area of scleral rim is visible in this part. And the same disc, if we see here in multicolor image, we can see definitely the almost full area of scleral rim is nicely visible. Along with that, the cup disc ratio can be seen properly here. This area where because of this color issue, we are not able to assess this part properly. We can see here the cup disc is appearing a little bit larger. And also we can see that the RNFL striations are nicely visible. So this is a healthy disc. Another common example, this is a tilted disc. So in this tilted disc also, sometimes it's difficult to assess the inferior neuroatrial part of which side the disc is tilted. The corresponding area of this peripapillary atrophy that can project something, some field defects like this. We have to keep all these things in mind, whether it is corresponding with the neuroatrial rim thinning or not, or whether an RNFL defect is there or not. We are not able to assess this properly from this color fundus photograph. But if we see this multicolored images, now we nicely see, we are able to see there is no gross thinning here. This area of peripapillary atrophy nicely visible, and also the RNFL area, all striations and everything is intact, so no defects, nothing is there. So all this helps us to stamp this as a normal disc. Now coming to this glaucomatous optic neuropathy part, you can see from this colored disc photograph, there is definitely, it is around 0.8 CDR. Inferiorly, we can definitely make out that this area, the inferior rim, it is already thinned out, and also there is a wide area of RNFL defect, though it is not very well visible here, but definitely we can make out that there is some difference in the color here. So there's maybe a area of RNFL defect. The same picture, if we see here, the neuroatrial rim and peripapillary atrophy, in this picture also it is nicely visible, and this neuroatrial thinned out neuroatrial rim nicely demarcated here. And more importantly, this area of RNFL defect, huge area of RNFL defect, it is nicely visible here, which is nicely corresponding with this here, this superior arcuate defect. This is another example here. We can see that here this part also, the inferior area, it is thinned out, but we can't make out whether what is happening in the superior area. The CDR is not well visualized here, and also the RNFL defect is not very clearly visible. In this picture, we can see that neuroatrial is nicely visible here. The superior area is well intact. Whatever problem is there, that is here, the inferior thinned out area. But more importantly, this area of RNFL defect, this is nicely visible. This is another example here. This example, it is advanced glaucomatous damage. Both superior and inferior rim is thinned out. We can see that the superiorly definitely there is some RNFL defect area, diffuse RNFL loss, and all, everything is visible here. The same picture if we see in the multicolor also, the better delineation of the peripapillary atrophy is definitely visible. The NRR is also, the neuroatrial rim is also properly delineated here. And if not to mention about this, very nicely delineated area of RNFL defect. The same picture here also, the inferiorly also, this area is affected. So it is also corresponding with the biarcuate defect here in this automated perimetry. Disc hemorrhage, this is more or less same in both pictures. The color disc photograph also the way it is documenting, but the important part here is the multicolor area, the area of the slit defects, corresponding slit defects, is a more important features, whether the disc hemorrhage is clinically significant or not. Another important effect of this use of this modality can be in the preperimetric glaucoma. In preperimetric glaucoma, the field is essentially normal with some non-specific defects. Here we can see that the superior name is almost intact, but a small area of RNFL defect may be visible here, not very clearly demarcated. And here also you can see there is a small notch here, which is and there is a corresponding area of RNFL defect. The same thing we can see here in the multicolor imaging also. The notch is nicely visible here, the thinned out area, and associated this RNFL defect in both sides, superior pole and inferior pole, which is nicely corresponding with its OCT findings also. In OCT also we are seeing the same features. So coming to this advantages of the multicolor imaging, this is that we can use two technologies with same machine. That is a very important part. For nowadays, the modern technologies, quantitative analysis and quantitative documentation is very important. So you don't need to buy two expensive machines to document your findings. This is first advantage. Secondly, it is frequent dilatation is not required. If the meridian is clear, it is not that much required.
Sorry to interrupt you. We have limited time for each speaker, so I request you to please wind it up.
Yeah, this is the last slide only.
Okay.
So the peripapillary atrophy and RNFL defects are better visible here, and definitely we can say that is a non-inferior to color disc photographs to detect glaucomatous optic neuropathy. This is our unpublished data, and we have evaluated in 60 patients of primary glaucoma. And so we can conclude that this is a newer imaging modality. It is definitely helpful in diagnosis and follow-up of glaucomatous optic neuropathy. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Surajit, for showing us excellent photographs of the optic disc and how color fundus and multicolor image gave us additional information. So one question, are you routinely obtaining multicolor disc photos whenever you advise a disc photo or in selected cases?
No, usually if the patient is going for a OCT now, so we have instructed to take definitely to take a multicolor image photograph also, because in the same machine, patient doesn't have to pay extra for that. And also since the patient already going for one test, additionally that can also be done. It is definitely helpful because the RNFL part, we routinely take the RNFL for all patients, whoever is going for OCT. Along with that, if you can document the disc part also in future, definitely it is helpful for us. So if it is a typical case of till it is not validated, and it is, since it is still we consider the disc photograph is the gold standard. So for all clinical purposes where we feel that the documentation is definitely required, and in future it is important for our follow-up also, in those cases we definitely ask for the color photograph. With the color disc photograph we take. Additionally, if patient is going for any retina evaluation or any other cause, patient is I am sending the patient for RNFL analysis also, then we definitely ask for that multicolor imaging of disc also. It is helpful.
Okay, since it is not validated yet properly, that's why you are also asking for color fundus for color disc photo along with multicolor.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks again.
Yes.
Thanks again for taking us through the interesting disc photos on multicolor imaging. Thank you very much. So next speaker will be Dr. Tanmay Vishwas, who will be taking us the multicolor imaging in the realms of neuro-ophthalmology and how does it help in his practice. So Dr. Tanmay, can we have you?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Kumar Saurabh. So I'll be sharing my screen right now. So is my screen visible, I guess?
Yeah.
So is it full screen now? Yes, sir. So thank you. We'll be discussing into the neuro-ophthalmic advantages and helpful features that can be given by multicolor imaging. So first of all, I disclose no financial interest, and thank you to the scientific committee. So, as discussed above, multicolor imaging can be used as an adjunct to other non-invasive testing to support or to exclude our diagnosis. Today, we will discuss some diagnostic challenges and helpful features of the multicolor imaging in neuro-ophthalmology. So, one of the diagnostic dilemmas in neuro-ophthalmology is optic disc edema. So, whether it is true or a pseudo disc edema. Because if it is a true disc edema, so initiation of early treatment is very necessary. Whereas if it is pseudo disc edema, we probably need only close follow-up and observation. So differentiating if it is often very tedious and confusing, warranting testing by multiple methods. So various authors have defined various features differentiating the two of between the true disc edema and the pseudo disc edema. So here this is a multicolor image included in a study published by our institute. So this composite multicolored image shows a patient with bilateral optic nerve head drusen. So you can see how the greenish hue is confined to the disc margins, and also note that this greenish hue has very distinct borders. We will compare these features with other images in the upcoming slides. So this is the same eye which was imaged in infrared reflectance. See how the blood vessels are clearly visible around the disc, and again we'll compare this with the other eyes. So this is the image of true disc edema which was included in the study, in the same study, and this image shows a greenish hyperreflectance that extends well beyond the disc margins. It also shows irregular blurry margins and obscured disc vasculature. So this image shows the same eye in infrared. See how the obscured disc vasculature is very well noted on comparison with the previous infrared image. So this is the side-by-side comparison of the same two eyes discussed previously. So the left image is the disc drusen one and the right image is the true disc edema one. The white arrowheads compare the approximate extent of the green reflectance, and notice how extensive it is on the right image. This was correlated well with the SDOCT image findings showing RNFL edema in the eye of the right side, of the right image. So this is the image from the study by Mallam et al., who published a series of 20 cases. They have described a method of distinguishing true disc edema from the pseudo on the basis of the multicolor images. So they have stated that the true disc edema has few features, namely an elevated green ring surrounded by a central dark shadow. So we can see this elevated greenish ring and a central dark shadow, and also has blurring of disc margins and obscuration of disc vasculature. Whereas a pseudo disc edema doesn't show any definite bright green ring nor any central shadow, and has clearer disc margins and disc vasculature. So in their study, this patient on the left side had a papilledema, whereas on the right side, this patient had an optic nerve drusen. So coming to the another feature where multicolor is useful in evaluation is intraretinal inner nuclear layer microcysts. So these intraretinal inner nuclear layer microcysts are secondary to optic atrophy, although there are various hypotheses regarding the pathogenesis of these microcysts, but their association is well established. So whenever these inner nuclear layer cysts are detected, a differential diagnosis of edema is necessary. So the pattern of distribution of such cysts will help us in determining its true nature of origin. So this image shows a study by Jimenez Rolando et al. It shows an SDOCT feature of the inner nuclear layer microcysts. So you can see this patient had a traumatic optic neuropathy of the left eye, and here we can see the right where the right eye he had a vision of 6/6 and the left eye had a vision of no PL. And you can notice how the cysts are present on one side of the fovea in the right eye, where it is present on both sides of the fovea in the left eye. So this image shows the same, right eye of the same patient. So the top one is the blue reflectance, the bottom left is the green reflectance, and the right one is the infrared reflectance. So notice how the hyperreflective perifoveal patch which respects the vertical meridian. This is clearer in the blue and the green reflectance compared to the infrared reflectance. So this image shows the left eye of the same patient. Although there is a perifoveal hyperreflective area, but the boundaries are not as well delineated as in the previous image. This was due to the fact that the patient had a nopial eye and the fixation was a little poor. So here is another infrared reflectance image shown by a study by Monteiro et al. It shows a hyperreflective patch. So where the right eye shows the temporal patch perifoveal and the left eye shows the nasal perifoveal patch. Here you can see the nasal perifoveal patch, whereas the right eye shows a definite temporal perifoveal patch. So this patient had a right optic tract lesion. So these patches on the inner nuclear layer microcysts are kind of secondarily produced due to the optic atrophy. This image is taken by a study from Abeg et al. Showing similar hyperreflective patches, which is here noted by white borders. So this patient had the right optic tract ganglioglioma, which is now we can correlate that which is producing this inner nuclear layer microcyst. So a study by Wolf et al. Clearly shows that these patients do not have leakage of the dye in any phase during fluorescent angiography, thus proving that these cysts are not truly fluid-filled cysts. So thus multicolored imaging in inner nuclear layer microcysts secondary to optic atrophy helps us in avoiding fluorescent angiography and coming to a diagnostic conclusion. So multicolor imaging can also be helpful in cases of myelinated nerve fibers. Presence of myelinated nerve fibers can obscure the disc margins. It can conceal underlying peripapillary pathologies. Multicolor imaging can pick up changes which may be otherwise missed. So this is a picture from a patient who was part of a study published by our institute. So figure A shows an optic nerve disc margin, a very difficult delineation in the color from this photos. Whereas figure B shows disc margin better delineated in composite multicolor image, whereas figure C shows infrared reflectance scan, where the disc margin is clearer compared to the picture on the figure D, which is the green reflectance image. So coming to the summary, so multicolor imaging can be used as an adjunctive modality to avoid invasive testing to reach at an appropriate diagnosis in various neuro-ophthalmic disorders. So I'd like to thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vishwas. So nicely summed up the utility of multicolor in neuro-ophthalmic practice. So there was one question that has the multicolor imaging helped you reduce number of fluorescent angiographies in your practice?
Since the multicolor imaging hasn't been well standardized, so right now what we can do is we can case-to-case basis decide on whether we need fluorescent angiography, but definitely what we need is to at present is standardize the multicolor imaging, and then only maybe in the future we can further reduce the need of fluorescent angiography. But at present, the need of fluorescent angiography is not very much reduced compared to the previously, but in the near future, it will definitely be.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks again. So the next speaker is Dr. Tamonash Basu, who is a leading glaucoma specialist at Shankar Nethralaya, Kolkata. And he will be telling us, or rather discussing with us regarding newer modalities for glaucoma diagnosis. So welcome, Dr. Basu.
A very good morning to everyone. Thank you, Dr. Kumar Saurabh, for including me in this IC, and thank you, AIOS, for selecting this IEC in this first virtual AIOS conference. So after all the enthralling talks on multicolor imaging, on glaucoma, retina, and neuro-ophthalmic, I don't have much to say. Everybody knows everything almost. So we all know that glaucoma is a progressive optic neuropathy, and it is associated with irreversible loss of retinal ganglion cells. And as Dr. Shruyit said, that previously what we were using is slit lamp microscopy with 90D or 70D, or disc color photography, or red-free photography, and OCT and HRT for disc imaging. And multicolor technology has obviously given us a new armamentarium in this whole thing and for the glaucoma diagnosis. It's a new non-invasive retinal imaging modality available in the Spectralis platform of Heidelberg. I don't have any financial interest. And what they do is they use a confocal scanning laser ophthalmoscopy, as Dr. Kumar Saurav said. It uses 3 laser colors such as blue 488 nanometer, green of 550 nanometer of wavelength, and infrared 820 nanometer of wavelength. That penetrates the tissue differently, different depths they penetrate and simultaneously capture and depict with a false color from the different retinal structures. So the infrared images, which has the higher wavelength, they visualize the structure at the level of the outer retina or choroid or the deeper structures. And the green reflectance shows the retinal blood vessels and hemorrhages and exudates. And the blue reflectance gives the details of the inner retina or the vitreoretinal interface or RNFL thinning. So these 3 images are integrated and composited into the multicolor images. This is the basic of the multicolor imaging technology. And I'll be discussing mainly about the 2 things where we don't have so many diseases like the retina, so many color depictions. We will mainly discuss on the cup and the nerve fiber layer defects and the controversial scenarios. So what is the nerve fiber layer defect? It is one of the earliest signs to detect the ongoing glaucoma damage and its association with the optic nerve head morphological changes. Wedge-shaped RNFLD is an important finding. Why there is a wedge-shaped? Because the axons of the retinal ganglion cells inserted into the ONH in a concentric manner. The outermost retinal nerve fiber layer is inserted most peripheral to the optic nerve head, and the deepest one inserted in the central part. So Hoyt et al. Has described that it goes like a striation all around the retina, the normal retinal nerve fiber layer. And due to different causes like the intraocular pressure or something, the widening away of the retinal nerve fiber appears as a dark slit, which is known as the nerve fiber layer defect. So what the color funda till now, what we are doing to document this nerve fiber layer defect is we are using the color fundus photography. The color fundus photography was performed with FF40 450 plus fundus camera. I don't have any financial discomfort, financial disclosure. It uses a discomforting bright light and dilated pupil is necessary to get a optimum image quality. So this is the picture of 2 optic nerve heads with the color fundus photograph. We take 20° for normal color fundus and 30° for the red-free ones. So this is a right eye optic nerve with a. In the case of color fundus photograph, what we do to see the cup is what Dr. Surajit have said. We go with the color of the cup and the vessel bendings. I can say from here it is around 0.7 with a inferior rim thinning, and most probably there is a wedge defect in the inferior part. And in the left eye there is around 0.8 thinning with inferior rim loss, and I am not sure about the nerve fiber layer defect because of the image quality. This sort of things happens in the color fundus photograph because of the media haze or other factors. The red-free photographs also given us the same description only with a nerve fiber layer defect inferiorly. Most probably there is a nerve fiber layer defect here also. But when we see the same patient in the multicolor imaging, in the multicolor imaging in the green reflectance and blue reflectance, which images the superficial part of the retina, they have clearly shown that punched out retinal nerve fiber layer defect in the inferior rim. And in the infrared images, we can see the cup because the infrared images depicts the deeper layer structures. So we can see there is a inferior rim thinning. I would rather say inferior notch is there with around 0.7 cup. And in the left eye also there is a huge RNFLD is there, which we can better see in the green reflectance and blue reflectance. The superficial layer of the retina can be depicted, and the cup also is better seen by the color itself. It's around 0.8 with the inferior rim loss. So obviously the multicolor and the HVF is showing the same thing what we are seeing in the multicolored images. So in multicolored images, the nerve fiber layer defect is obviously better elicited than the normal color fundus photograph. We can see from the pictures itself. And it can give a good image quality in hazy media also, as Dr. Kumar sort of said, in the state of
View option.
sorry.
Oh, no.
In the if there is a hazy media like asteroid hyalosis or the lens haze, or there is a small pupil, we can get a better image quality with the multicolored image. In the patients of glaucoma, often they have non-dilating pupils like post-angle closure attack or pseudo exfoliation. In those cases, the pupil doesn't dilate. We can't dilate also the pupils. In those cases, the multicolored image is obviously a better choice than the color fundus photography.
Full screen.
Controversies will come in the multicolored. Sorry, is somebody saying anything? I'll continue. Multicolored imaging in myopic disc. In myopic disc, the detection of glaucoma and seeing the progression is actually very difficult. And myopia itself is considered as a risk factor for glaucoma, and for them to see the because of the PPA and pedipapillary atrophy and all, the HVF is also not very informative actually. So this multicolored imaging gives a better view of the myopic disc. Even in the shallow cups also, they give a better picture in multicolored imaging. This is the color fundus photograph of a high myopic patients, where we can see there is, I will say 0.8 bipolar thinning is there with a huge PPA. I will not be able to tell what is beta zone or alpha zone clearly in this picture. Even in the red free also, I can tell whether it most probably is a beta zone, but in multicolored imaging, the pictures are a lot better. We can easily say there is around 0.9 VCD, vertical cup disc ratio with a huge PPA, and the beta zone is clearly visible here with a huge alpha zone. And this is important for us to diagnose for the diagnosis of glaucoma cases, as the beta zone is the important for sequential imaging and whether it is increasing or not in glaucoma patient, that we have to see. Even in the green reflectance and blue reflectance also, we can see there is a huge PPA. And in the left eye also, we can see there is around 0.7 cup with a huge PPA with a beta zone around the nerve. So in color fundus photographs or in the red field image also, the cup disc ratio in myopic eyes are not very discernible, which is very easily discernible in multicolored imaging and infrared images. And so in conclusion, I would like to say that this multicolored imaging with the composite multicolored image and the green reflectance and blue reflectance gives an excellent imaging modality for the glaucoma, and which have a superiority over the color disc photography. We don't have it in regular practice yet, but yeah, we are using it, and it has a bright future. Thank you.
Sir, your voice is mute, sir.
I'm sorry. Again, thank you, Dr. Basu, for excellent talk. The same question to you. How frequently are you advising multicolor disc photo in your practice?
We are not advising regularly, as I said, but whenever the patient is going for multicolor, and this sort of myopic cases where the patient can't perform HVF and the disc photo, which because of the shallow cup and the pale disc, when it is not very much easily discernible, the cup disc ratio through the color fundus photography, in those cases, the multicolor, I advise multicolor imaging. And obviously, whenever the patient is going for OCT, because the same machine captures the multicolored imaging also, I take the multicolored imaging instead of color fundus photography, and it gives a good result actually.
Okay, so in high myopic eyes and patients who have large PPAs, it is useful as imaging, right?
And all those patients whom we can't dilate in sometimes in plateauitis or other cases where we can't dilate, or If the post-angular closure attack, if the pupil is not dilating, in those cases, the multicolor disk photos can be obtained, because color fundus photography, we don't get a good pictures in those cases. So we can take multicolor.
Okay, and one question was for Dr. Tanmay Biswas, that most of the patients who of neurophthal diseases have very poor vision. So do you find it difficult for multicolor imaging in those eyes which have very poor vision, obviously very poor fixation, anything like that?
Yes, if the vision is very poor, sometimes there is a little bit problem with fixation and all. But right now, all the machines are very good. We have good eye tracking and all, so the image quality over time has improved. But yes, there are still a little bit of problems, especially in our patient eyes who have like no PL or very hand movement kind of. We do find it an issue. So definitely we try to coming to the diagnosis, we try to support it with other investigations, definitely, like we need more commonly we need an MRI and all. So we just on the basis at present, just on the basis of color multicolor imaging, we don't advise additional, we don't really change our line of investigation. But yes, with coming time and all, it might change a little bit. So yeah, we do a little bit find the problem with the very poor vision.
So maybe the need of the hour might be that the multi-center study should be done using multicolor imaging in glaucoma as well as in neurophthal
For standardization.
For standardization, because these specialties mainly deal with the measurements. So objective measurements have to be standardized. That's what I feel. So I'll ask the hosts of the meeting, do we have any questions? Or I don't see any questions.
I'd just like to add one point here. It was first noticed that efficacy of this multicolor imaging in glaucoma. It was on paper published there on a huge group of the retina practitioners who are taking the photograph for the diabetic retinopathy. They have noticed that the RNFL differs are very nicely visible. So not even a trained person can figure it out that there is something wrong. So from there, the idea came that it can be used for the glaucoma also. So from that way, it is another advantage of this imaging modality, maybe for the other subspecialty for the retina consultants and all who are seeing that. Along with that, they can figure out that there is something wrong in the glaucoma part also, and the proper evaluation may be required for them. It is an important advantage of this imaging.
So probably rather glaucoma specialists should also incorporate it in their practice, and they would probably see better than a retina clinician, and they would probably identify more and come out with a standardized guidelines.
Yes,
that will be the need. Anyway, thank you again. Thank you, Dr. Surajit, Dr. Tamonash, Dr. Tanmay Biswas, and Dr. Ish Nigam for excellent talks. And we do not have any questions, and we cannot thank enough AIOC to give us this opportunity to present this instruction course. With this, we can close the session. We do not have any questions. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for joining us here. I would like to thank all the doctors and all the panelists for a wonderful, informative session. Thank you, Dr. Kumar, for moderating it so well. And we have ended it before time. So thank you so much for that. And thank you for joining us here at AIOC 2021. Thank you. We can conclude the session.